We're going to welcome an amazing group of women today who we're going to be working with on the Diverse Tech Set project. Now, if you're wondering what the Diverse Tech Set project is, it's really an extension of the work that we did last year with the book study with Dr. Muhammad. So if you remember correctly, at each quarterly session, she did a presentation for us to help us get really intimate with the book. And then there was ongoing work in EduPaths. And we've been wanting to take that work deeper. So we brought a group of Cultivating Genius facilitators together to work with the amazing Cultivating Genius coaches. So what they're going to talk to us about today is Read Aloud with diverse text. And specifically, we're going to look at Change Things, which is a book that you all have. And if you don't have, send me an email and I'll make sure to get you a copy. And they're going to be talking about Read Aloud. Now, keep in mind that we've done a lot of work with Read Aloud, specifically connected to Essential 2. And so when we go into this space, we're gonna assume that's what you know how to do. Like Dr. Duke said in the video this morning, there's specific ways touching on vocabulary. So in the context of what you're going to see today, we're really going to focus on the pursuits and think about looking at text set as a unit. And in the past, that's different because we've really looked at specific texts. And now we're going to kind of look at a collection of those texts. So I'm going to link the bios in for our amazing colleagues that are joining us today so that you can take a peek at them when you are able to. And then I'll invite them to introduce themselves today. Before I do that, I just want to do a quick check with one of the coaches, looking at the time. We're able to go a little bit longer, but I'm not sure if that works for your schedule. So can we just pause for a second so that we're honoring the time that you have and making any adjustments that we need?
Hi, yes, thank you so much. So we have a meeting that we have to be at 10:30.
Okay.
And so we do have a 10:20 stop for this. So we're going to, instead of doing the entire read aloud, which it sounds like everyone's pretty familiar with, we're going to kind of skip through the pages since we have beautiful technology and the ability to use a digital copy of the text. We're going to skip through the pages to give a little bit more explanation around how we came to the bigger picture of what this lesson can be.
Great. And please introduce yourself. Thank you for that, Chelsea. Introduce yourself to the group, and again, we'll link those bios.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us into your space today. My name is Chelsea Cully Love. I am an educator coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am honored to be on the team with Dr. Saba and Jody and Madam Q this morning. So I will turn it over to them to also introduce themselves.
I'll go. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jody Bell. Those that love me affectionately call me Jody, as Chelsea just did. I have been an educator for over 15 years. It's been a great joy for me to serve and to always be in community with genius children and families. And thank you so much for having us in your space. And I look forward to being in community with you today. I guess that leaves you, Dr. Saba and Madam Q.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Saba Khan Block. I am coming to you from Iowa City, Iowa. I'm an assistant professor of elementary literacy education at the University of Iowa. And prior to that, I was an elementary school teacher for 20 years in Arlington, Texas. Again, so happy to be here with my sisters, Chelsea, Jody, and Madam Q. So honored to work for Dr. Muhammad at Hill Pedagogies. And y'all, thank you so much for having us here. And Lisa for the invitation. Thank you.
And good morning, everybody. My name is Quran Shakir, affectionately called Madam Q, and I reign from Atlanta, Georgia. I have 3 decades of experience as an educator and almost 10 years of working with Dr. Muhammad, even before she wrote her book. So it is my pleasure to be with my sisters we are working with this as coaches, but also to be with you because I've heard amazing things about you and the things you're doing. I hope it's not too loud. I'm at the airport and I just couldn't miss this session with you. So I'm so excited to be here with you.
So I'm going to share my screen, Chelsea, so that you can see the book. And I think I have the lesson plan open also. So I think if you're saying go to the first page of misconceptions, please, Chelsea, you read that page and do your own think aloud. And then, of course, we'll have some dialogue around it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Saba. So as we are going to kind of abbreviate this process right now, we wanted you all to take a walk with us through the thinking that we had as we were given this beautiful text by Amanda Gorman. Change Sings is absolutely stunning. It's a beautiful representation of love, of hope, and of togetherness. And as we're reading texts like this, it's easy for us to kind of move through the space of seeing how beautiful it is without thinking of ways that we can take it deeper, that we can also think with an eye and a lens of criticality at the message so that we can be more engaging and more just thorough in our thoughts so that we can give that to our young people as well. So we're going to read this page and then Saba is going to speak about some misconceptions that could come from the illustrations and or the words. I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage.
So, Chelsea, I want to hear your thoughts. Jadi, I want to hear your thoughts, Madam Q. But one of the things, I will say that the more I look at this particular illustration in this book, the more feelings I have. So I'm going to try to sort of keep myself in check. But one of the things that, this idea of tolerance, and in this illustration, the young Amanda Gorman, sort of the main character, the heroine of the story, sort of reaching out to this boy who I think racially appears white, a member of the dominant group. The dog is growling and barking at her. That frightens me and changes my breath. The boy has his hands in his ears and head down. So one of the things I want to talk about is, okay, with our children, and I'm now going to read from the lesson plan, we want to discuss what this means with our students beyond being nice. What is Amanda Gorman asking of us here? So in some ways, she's asking for us to enact humanity towards each other. And she explains that it is not always easy to feel that way towards every person. So we need to talk with our students about why this may feel hard to show, quote, tolerance. In this moment, the person who is showing tolerance is the young woman of color, the young Black woman. And so it's not the white boy with his angry dog. So why is it hard for this main character in Change Sings? That's the person who's showing tolerance. I think often when images like this or sentences like this are said in a book, there's some idea that the hero of the story is this white boy with his angry dog who is somehow supposed to be ultimately going to show tolerance. And that is somehow the humanity that we have all been waiting for. And that's not the case. The bravery and the courage is coming from the young woman, the Black woman. So my question then to myself as the educator before I read this book is, how is tolerance being conveyed in this image? And I have a lot of feelings about this because what the story right now in this moment through this illustration particularly is showing is that the labor to reach across and to, in some ways, put her own body in harm's way is the responsibility of the young Black woman. And I cannot emphasize how much I disagree with that. I do not believe it is her labor at all. And I would not encourage, the image of the dog there is just terrifying. So I do think that when you see something like this, there's this sort of knee-jerk reaction, like, yes, we just need to be nice. And look where she's being nice. And that's great. Look, she even has a dog bone Nope. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do with that image?
Thank you. We can go on to the next one. And I think that for the sake of time, we're fine with hearing the process of your yes, yes. I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I am a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings.
Okay. So, again, in a beautiful book like Change Sings, there is certainly a responsibility for those of us who are using this book, teaching with this book, to show our own depth of critical, humanizing, socio-political knowledge. We cannot ask the book to do the lifting. We, the educator, has to do the lifting. And so again, when we talk about, I also walk our differences to show we are the same. In my experience, and in my sisters who are here with me in this room, in their experiences, often what happens with this is there is a message of universality, a messaging of all lives matter. And we stand in resistance to that messaging because, again, we don't want to send a message about colorblind niceness. We don't want to send a message of colorblind equality. And I don't think that's what Amanda Gorman thinks. I want to really say that. I don't think any Black woman in any, or woman of color, has ever thought that. So how can we complexify this statement to mean more than we are all the same? Because sometimes that's what we land on, this message of sameness, or that we are all treated equally. And so we need to, even with our youngest children, share the socio-political realities and also acknowledge that our youngest children actually have a pretty good handle of the socio-political realities of the world that they live in, which is what Goldie Muhammad means when Dr. Muhammad says our children are genius. That is what she means. They are not waiting to be told, they know. And so let's honor their knowledge and their genius and think about, okay, what does it mean? What does this message mean with these socio-political realities? Yes, we are all human, but our systems do not provide the same access and protection to all people. And we have to simultaneously be honest and truthful about that.
And if I may, Dr. Saba, jump in on the
Please,
questions that you're asking, and Chelsea, as beautifully as you call us into the text with your voice, around like the setting the intentions of the responsibility that is required of us when we are doing read alouds, right? To plan ahead around what is our intent when we are reading this book. What may be our misconceptions or misconceptions that may come up as we are reading. Something that Chelsea said early on, you know, even as we're planning this, is that sometimes in the moment when questions come up from our genius scholars, our responses are incredibly important because we may cause more harm by not being prepared for those misconceptions. So really thinking about, even as you are choosing books in your classroom that center, I'm not sure who said it earlier, around social justice, around inclusion, around diversity, around really grounding yourself on racial equity, what is then required of us about the criticality, you know, about what misconceptions might come up from our various genius scholars, and then what do we have to do to be prepared when those questions come. And so I just wanted to name that for us in this space.
Jadi, thank you so much. And I think that's what I'm, you know, in the lesson planning, the things I'm trying to say here are for my self-reflection, for me as the teacher, my self-reflection. What do I need to be prepared for? Thank you so much for saying that. Yes, 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 100%. Let me keep going here. We have this one.
As I grow, it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs.
So yes, here in this, we want to provide hope that all of us as individuals are part of the change we want to see in the world. Yet at the same time, we must acknowledge that there are greater forces that have always been at work around the need for power. And the truth that change towards humanity is always a pursuit. It has been a pursuit in the past, the pursuit in the present and the future, and that we need to keep working for a better world. But again, that acknowledging that although at the individual level, the local level, we are capable of making change. Yet again, to not do a messaging that there are not institutional and systemic ways of being that also are constantly coming at us. And as educators in this moment, we know with the legislation around banned books, what's framed as anti-CRT, every step forward, there is always going to be resistance. And so to not somehow water that down.
I'm the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings.
Thank you, Chelsea. And so here, I guess, just notes that I have in the lesson planner around, and I don't want to say I have, we, Chelsea, Madam Q, Jody, and I discussed these. So what we talked about here was, as a class, let's talk about what freedom means at the sort of individual and societal level. Again, this imaging of this young Black woman, young Black girl, sort of doing all the reaching out. I just wonder about the messaging around whose responsibility it is. This concerns me. What does it mean, freedom? What does it look like, freedom? What does it sound like, freedom? What does it feel like? So I think really wanting to hear from our young people about their ideas around freedom, and also simultaneously, so like, what is freedom and what isn't freedom? I would want that to be part of the conversation. So thank you so much. Yeah, I'm going to stop this share. Chelsea, is that okay? Or would you, okay.
Thank you. So as Lisa shared with us, the essential instructional practice, as you're looking at text sets and read alouds, there are a couple of different spaces within that document that you all are using where the Hill pedagogy and the Hill framework is dead on, spot on with what needs to be taking place in your classrooms. So we see sets are thematically related. And as you'll see, as we look through our lesson plan, that the use of layered text is where we have multiple entry points for young people across the board to be able to access what's being taught, whether it's a text, whether it's a poem, if it's visual, art, music. So being able to ensure that the sets are thematically related also helps you teach cross-curricularly. We also look at the connections to higher order discussion among children and teachers, and that is the pursuit of intellectualism. If your education or whatever you're teaching in your classroom doesn't go outside of your classroom, then are you truly making your young people smarter? Are you helping them to see the world differently? Are you taking the time to learn and to see the world differently so that you as a teacher, as an educator, are also continuing to grow? As Dr. Saba was just going through these misconceptions, these are teacher-facing misconceptions that are incredibly important for us to make sure that we're looking at prior to introducing this text to our class. Now, do we want to be able to read the text and just read it through without stopping first? Absolutely. Enjoy the text, enjoy the ways that Amanda Gorman uses language so beautifully. Allow your young people to look at the illustrations and to draw questions of their own. However, when you go through that text again, which we all know as educators, it's important to revisit the text. That's when we start to bring out those discussion questions. That's when we start to make sure that the misconceptions that we have and that our young people have are being addressed through the process of looking at the text the second time. We also, or the third or the fourth time. We also look at intellectualism in the way that it's modeling application of knowledge. And that's the criticality part as well. As we're looking at this and we're asking these questions, what are we noticing about humanity? As Dr. Saba said, what are we noticing about ways that this young girl is being asked to be the one, or being expected to be the one, that's showing tolerance at all of these different stages, when she shouldn't be the one doing the heavy lifting in this. So making sure that we are giving our young people the lens and the language to be able to ask those questions themselves. So we look at number 8, which is abundant reading material, again, looking at layering texts. And then we look at number 10, which is collaboration with families and promoting literacy. And in our lesson plan, there is a connection with family and community literacy to make sure, again, that your lesson is not stopping at your door. Because if it stops at your door, if it's not being talked about with young people when they leave class, if it's not being conversed about at the lunch tables or when they get home, then your opportunity is being squandered, because that's not an opportunity that you are allowing people or your students to think beyond their school to the community in ways that they can actually take it from your lesson to action. So Dr. Saba, would you mind sharing the lesson plan document, and Jody can take away how we started with this process?
Thank you, Dr. Saba. So in thinking about, as I previously mentioned, around the questions, even before we got to the planning around the intentions, we really started with some essential questions that grounded the pursuits. And the questions were, what life skills, events, or academic lessons have you experienced that have sparked and or affected change in your life? Why do we as humans change, and how can the changes we make affect ourselves and others? And so really thinking about those essential questions, and that really grounded our pursuits. We really wanted to think about the concept of change, right? Being in the pursuit of change, how it happens, and acknowledging how we can make change to real life problems. And so here you will see towards the ladder in the bottom, the pursuit of identity, skills based on and also grounded in the standards, intellect, criticality, and joy for identity. We identify that students will reflect and discuss life skills, events, or academic lessons that they have experienced that have sparked or affected change in their life, as we named with the essential question. For skills, they will engage in civic participation, right? And be enthralled in the explanation of why it is important for us to know our rights, and how and when members of our American society demonstrate that responsibility by actively participating in civic life. And here you will see the rest of the standards. Towards intellectualism, around the piece of what are they really learning about that's going to turn into action, is students considering around how voting perpetuates a cycle of change, right? And how that change can affect a multitude of people, to what Dr. And Chelsea are saying, of like, not just in our community, but also the world. For criticality, students will understand the power of voting, legislation, and movements. And then, of course, joy, students will read, discuss, and write about what they can change in order to see themselves and others in sameness, but also differences, to understand the needs that they have to feel human and whole. And so those essential questions really grounded the pursuits. Then we layered. It is important to always layer, not just with change things, but with also multiple layers. Here you will see we have a song, we have a video, so you'll see the different ways in which we have layered text to get to the concepts that we identified for the pursuits. Thank you, Chelsea.
So as we're trying to think about how to bring this lesson together. We were given the book Change Sings, but Madam Q and I are coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, the state that has literally had the country on pins and needles for the past month. And we were thinking about the fact that voting has been a message that's been definitely brought home for our young people through text messages, through videos, through commercials, through radio ads, through seeing billboards and posters everywhere. And so we took this idea of change to a bigger concept of how civic responsibility can invoke change, making sure that we also pulled in standards and skills, which in this specific unit, you can see the skills of students will engage in civic participation. Students will identify and explain rights and responsibilities of citizenship. Students will identify the 3 branches of state government in Michigan and the power of each. So we are not just using Change Sings as the text and expecting everything to be connected to that text. We are using the 5 pursuits to make sure that the idea and the understanding of the power of change is stretched and elongated so that young people can see the different ways that they conceptualize change, so they can understand what it means to see that something needs to be done differently and that they have an opportunity to work to make that difference. And so through the 5 pursuits in this lesson plan, we're going and attempting to bring the idea of change around through a social studies lens, tying it into the text Change Sings, using multiple pieces of or multiple access points of the dance production so that they can see how change is showed and how change is demonstrated through movement. The song gives young people a chance to listen and analyze the lyrics so they can see and understand the power and the opportunities they have. And then we have the We the People video that gives them an opportunity to understand a little bit more about the political responsibilities and the political opportunities to make change, especially as we see in our communities, understanding that talking about change is not going to make for change. We understand what it takes to change a system, to put steps in place so that we can change a system. So it's not only better for us, but it's better for everyone around us. And as we look at this and we think about what it means to talk about it or to approach it through a black and brown lens, this change is better for everyone. This understanding this concept of change and understanding how we work to create change for the betterment of everyone benefits everyone. This isn't being approached through a lens of hatred. This isn't being approached through a lens of exclusion. This is being approached through a lens of inclusion, and that inclusion affects everyone around us so that we can all be better and build stronger. Dr. Saba, would you mind going down very quickly to the days? And this lesson plan has been linked. And for those of you, and we invite anyone else who's curious, who wants to know and understand a little bit more, not only about the 5 pursuits and about the framework, but understanding how you take a beautiful picture book and create a unit that can shift and move minds, mountains, and thought patterns to be a better catalyst for change. If you're interested in understanding how we did this, what our process was, please join us tomorrow, where we'll go through this a lot more in detail, and then you'll have an opportunity to practice it on your own. But day 1, introduce the unit of change. Day 2, we're going to go back to that read aloud. Day 3, review the anchor text, watching the video to help bring it together and to bind it even more. Inquiry in small groups, watching the video about BIPOC leaders from Michigan, helping young people understand that your leaders are representing all of us and that we need to have representation that looks like all of us. Day 4, describing ways in which we can enact change. Students will research various members of local and state government. They will reread anchor text. And then day 7, letter writing and class presentations, taking it from the classroom lessons to action. Just because we are doing this beautiful work around equity does not mean that we are letting go of rigor, expectation, intellectualism. Young people are learning, and they're learning about humanity, and they're getting smarter, and they're working on their writing, and they're working on comprehension, and they're learning social studies skills. It is all happening together. So I know that we have a very tight turnaround for the meeting that we have to attend tomorrow. But again, if you're interested, we invite you to join us tomorrow. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Dr. Saba. Thank you, Madam Q and Jody, for allowing us to come together, and to my sisters for doing this amazing work. It is always a pleasure working with y'all.
Thank you so much, Chelsea and team. You've given us so much to think about, and thanks for being in community with us. And we look forward to getting to know you in this space, which you called our space, but I hope it really is our space, with you feeling part of that hour too. And the invitation, like you mentioned, Chelsea, is open. It's open for you to sign up for this project. It's going to be an in-depth project meeting on the, and I know you all have to go. So feel free. I just wanted to share that. Thank you. Thank you. And you got a lot of love in the chat. So
bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
bye, Jody. Thank you. Madam Q, thank you. Dr. Saba, thank you. Thank you so much. And I put the sign up link in the agenda so that y'all know it's wrong, right? It's not. Erin's fixing it for me. But again, last year we spent a lot of time with cultivating genius, and we know that high quality professional learning, we need lots of exposure and lots of support and lots of revisiting and lots of collaboration. And so this project that we're offering with the diverse tech sets, it's not a requirement, right? It's an opportunity for you to be in community with leaders who know deeply cultivating genius, the framework, the standards. We made connections to the essentials today. Nell has talked to us about thematic units and things like Project Place in the past. So it's a commitment. The meetings take place on the optional day of the quarterly sessions, and then there's homework in between. But you'll be working with a partner. You'll have coaching and support from the Cultivating Genius coaches, and then the facilitators from the network who've been helping. Want to just give a shout out to them. And feel free to just heart and put a raised hand if that's you. I know you have a lot of questions, and I know that that was a deep look. Just keep in mind that we're going to be working to become fluent in this type of lesson planning. It will be clear to you by the end of the project how it will look in a classroom. And, we're going to work through this together. So again, we invite you, and thank you all so much for listening and tuning in.